Okay, good afternoon. My name is Kim Cole. I am out of the Patent East office. So welcome to this session today. It's an hour session and it is titled Taking Steps Together for a Better Transition. Today we are very honored to have Caitlin Savani, Jackie Lister, and Hillary Mangus here presenting with us. So let me just go through some housekeeping things just to make sure we are all set for today's session. And then I will turn everything over to our three presenters. So if you need closed captioning, you are able to use the, if you can, on the bottom of your Zoom panel, you will see CC. You can click on that and that will give you your closed captioning. Also, once we get started, I will put in the chat the link to all of the handouts, the agenda, and the different resources for today and tomorrow's summit. So I'll put that in the chat once we get started. We are going to ask that if you have questions, if you can please use the chat and we will get to Q&A at the end of the session if there is time. Let's see, and I believe at the end of the session, I will give you your session code. And we will talk just kind of about your Act 48 credits, should you would like to receive them and how you can go about receiving them. So that's kind of our housekeeping information. So let me get started by introducing our three presenters today. Caitlin Savani, she currently works as a rehabilitation specialist with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. She received her master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from the University of Pittsburgh before starting at OVR as a counselor. Her caseload focused on transition age students and included work on several specialty transition projects within the agency. In 2016, Caitlin started in her new role as the rehabilitation specialist with a focus on the policy, procedure, and implementation of pre-employment transition services of the Eastern region of PA. She's excited to be a part of OVR's continuing efforts to increase services to our transition age students. We are also joined by Jackie Lister, who is an educational consultant at Patent with 25+ years experience in the field of education. She co-leads the Middle School Success Path to Graduation, or P2G, State Personnel Development Grant Project and the PA Secondary Transition Initiative. Jackie brings secondary classroom and community-based experience from both a public and private education setting to us today. That's her background. We also have Hillary Mangus, who is an educational consultant at the Patent Pittsburgh, where she co-leads the Secondary Transition Initiative for the state. She also serves on the School Psychology, Universal Design for Learning, Achieve, and Intensive Interagency Initiatives. Dr. Mangus's previous work experience includes serving as psychologist for early intervention, DART, at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. In addition, she served as contracted school psychologist for West Allegheny and school district psychologist for Carleton. Dr. Mangus joined the team at Patent in 2017, following service as the coordinator of special education and student services for the Carleton School District. So we have experts across all fields, all age ranges, to bring us some wonderful information of how we're moving services and programs forward for our youth in Pennsylvania. So it is my pleasure to introduce Hillary, Jackie, and Caitlin.
Thanks, Kim. So we are really excited to be here with special education leaders and the rest of the participants of this conference. This conference is something that sits close to my heart because I was a special education leader, so I always enjoy giving you the information first. And we're really excited to talk with you about the renewed partnership that PDE and Patent have with OVR and the work that we're doing, taking steps together for better transition services for students with disabilities in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to just highlight where you can access our handout and some of the information and materials that we would be sharing with you today. So you can either use the QR code or the tiny URL, and I believe that Kim just put that in the chat for you. But everything that we're going to be talking about today, we put onto a Padlet, and I'm going to switch screens really quickly and show you the Padlet so that you can get an idea about the resources that we're going to be sharing with you today. So the first column in the Padlet contains virtual resources that can help you in your transition efforts for students with disabilities. Over the past year, we spent some time at the beginning of the pandemic and through last year working with our intermediate unit patent consultants and intermediate unit TAC to put together some different virtual resources to continue to be able to provide transition services during the pandemic. And we'll talk a little bit about what those look like. We put together and have it there for you a flyer for a virtual reality fair that we're excited to talk with you about. And then also information about the MOU between the Bureau of Special Education and OVR and different resources to support that work. So we will be going through different things that are on this Padlet at different times throughout this presentation, but we wanted you to have access to everything in one spot because it's a lot. So jumping back into the PowerPoint. So before we get started, what we wanted you to do for us is to let us know who's on the call. So if you could put your name and your role in either the district or the agency that you work with, we'd love to know who we're presenting with and who we're sharing information with. And that helps us as we go into any questions and answers that you might have as well. So feel free to enter that into the chat for us. We'll take a look as we see it coming through. So seeing lots of representation across the state. We're seeing school districts, we're seeing bureau advisors, we're seeing school psychologists, advocates, parent advisors, APS. Really nice cross-representation from across the state, different programs throughout the state. IU support and IU TAC. Great. So it seems like we've got just a really great diverse group of people on the call, and we're hoping that the information that we share with you all today is helpful in the work that you do with your students and with the people that you serve. So before we get started, one of the things we wanted to do was show how we adapted. So right off the bat with the pandemic, we saw, really creative and innovative ways that you all were providing education to students across the Commonwealth through uses of things like Bitmoji classrooms and Bitmoji open houses. So we jumped on the Bitmoji bandwagon and we wanted to share with you our Bitmojis. One of the things I hope you find really humorous is that Jackie and I spend so much time together that our Bitmojis are wearing the same outfit because we've become pretty much one brain in the work we do. And I think Kim did a really nice job introducing us and who we are, but we wanted to let you see that we also had to adapt the work that we did, both in training and technical assistance, and then in the provision of things like pre-employment transition services and OVR services to students and young adults with disabilities. And so just as you all had to pivot and change and adapt, so did we, but it was welcome. And I think what you'll see as we go through some of the things that we share with you today is that we found really creative and innovative ways for transition services to continue for students with disabilities. So today, what we wanted to talk with you about is the things that we did during the pandemic to help improve transition services for students with disabilities. I say all the time that I turn my head and in the next minute, transition gets bigger and bigger every minute. So there have been lots of changes. In a lot of ways, we call the time during the pandemic for us a little bit of, there were some silver linings and we were able to get some really amazing work done that maybe had been put on the back burner or had been put on hold while we were doing other things. So we did have some grace and some opportunity to create. We also want to share with you the steps that we're taking at OVR and the Bureau to partner together to ensure seamless transition services. And then some of the exciting things that are coming out of both of our agencies, either individually or collaboratively over the next year. So I think the first thing to start with, and we always like to start here because it's been a really hard year. It's been a hard year for everybody. It's been busy. It's been difficult. There are lots of barriers that come into providing education in all of the different ways that we had to provide it. We had to provide it virtually. We had to provide it hybrid. We had to provide it in face-to-face, and it changed, and it was constantly evolving. So what we wanted to do was get a sense from you, using a poll everywhere, what was hard about providing transition services during the pandemic. So you can either join by the web or join by text. I'm going to switch screens and actually put the poll everywhere up very quickly so that you can see this larger in a full screen. So what we'd like for you to do is take a minute to answer the question. You can use short phrases, you can use one word, but what was hard? And you can see that in order to participate, you need that information, and we can put that in the chat too. Jackie, I think you can throw it in the chat for them. And before I switch to being able to populate the live responses, I just want to make sure that we capture that for you so that you have that in the chat to access. So I see some information coming through in the chat too. If you're not able to use the poll everywhere, feel free to use the chat. Jackie did just put the link in the chat, so you should be able to access that. I'm seeing a lot of communication and communication with families, communications with team members. And now you're starting to see some of the answers coming in. Being virtual, having access to students, having access to the community, how to provide training, access to jobs, access to students, being able to be in the community. So what you should know about poll everywhere is the more frequently an answer is provided, the bigger it is on the screen. So access just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And certainly access in every which way, shape, and form is definitely going to be probably what anyone would say was the biggest barrier. Options, training, safety protocols, all really great. And not anything I think that is coming as a shock or surprise to us, but definitely having to think differently about how and the ways in which we could provide these services to our students this year. So we wanted to share with you a challenge that came to us from, now I have to switch screens for a second. Jumping back to the PowerPoint. We were charged with over the last year to really think creatively about the ways in which we provided training and technical assistance, even to pivot a little bit outside of the parameters of what we do normally as a patent system. And so in what ways could we help to support you as LEAs to provide services to students? And so we brought that challenge back to our intermediate unit transition consultants and patent consultants and said, let's think about 4 projects that we'd like to work on to be able to provide different opportunities for LEAs to be able to help students access transition services. So one of the first things that we did right at the very beginning of the pandemic was we created a Padlet that addressed different ways to provide transition supports and services during the pandemic. And so that Padlet is actually embedded as the first link on the current Padlet we gave you access to. So now you have access technically to 2 Padlets. The way that the Padlet is organized is by the 3 IEP goal areas. Then we added a column for resources for individuals with significant disabilities. And then we added 4 columns to the right, which address the 4 career education and work standards. And all of those resources are things that you can access with students online to be able to help to provide support and transition supports and services in a virtual environment. So that was the first task that we set out to embark, and that Padlet continues to be updated as new resources, as new things become available. And certainly feel free, if you come across something that you think would be good for students in the state, to share that with us, and we will happily add it to the Padlet, because we continue to want to grow that and to be able to have that as a place where things are able to be accessed for students. The second project that we embarked on, and it was through seeing some of the really cool things that teachers were doing to make a classroom virtually feel like a classroom, is a take on something that a lot of our TAC provide at the regional level, and sometimes our school districts provide at the local level, which are transition fairs. So knowing that we couldn't be face-to-face to access information from our agency partners, from employers, from post-secondary education entities, how could we still get that information to our families, to our students in a way that they were able to have fun with, but also get that information. And so our TAC came up with a template and many of them offered them throughout the school year, Google Classroom or Google Slides virtual transition fairs. So what that turned into in terms of our intermediate unit TAC and patent consultants is we created basically a template or a skeleton of what that could look like. And that is actually on the Padlet for you as well. And I just wanted to show you, because you're able to take that and to create for yourself your own local transition fair. So you can actually click on the link in the Padlet. Something's not working with it right now. We were having to have some problems with Padlet, but we'll get that worked out for you. You're able to take that and modify it to create it at your own local level. And there are some other resources that support that, including tips for creating a virtual transition fair. So different ideas for how to create your the layout. Where do you put the information? How do you create the links? How do you insert video clips, and different things to help you create the skeleton for your own local or regional transition fair. So our TAC were really creative and inventive in the way in which they put that information together. And again, it can be customized and made specific to your region. I'm going to put in the chat one of our TACs or one of our intermediate units, a link to their actual virtual transition fair, so that you're able to kind of click through it and see what that looked like and some of the different resources that they were able to share in their virtual transition fair. So that was one of the really creative ways that we tried to provide some transition information to youth and families. Along that line, the other thing that we did was create, and many of our intermediate unit TAC have done this in partnership with credit unions, is a virtual reality fair. And so typically these are held at the intermediate units or within a school district. And during that, students get to participate in some really cool activities where they walk in and they're given a job and a salary, and then they have to use that job and salary to make different decisions about their personal budget and creating a savings. They learn things like how to determine a want versus a need, adapting and adjusting when something like your water heater breaks and you have to have money to pay for a new hot water heater. And really the idea is for them to navigate what those financial challenges are when you're living on your own. And so there's a template that is created, again, available on the Padlet that we provided for you. But the other piece of that is that that committee actually took it one step further, and they're offering a virtual reality fair series, virtual this fall, and there will be a second one in the spring. So the link to information about that is on the Padlet. There are 4 days in the fall that they will be providing this information. They partnered with Gold Credit Union, Achieva, and EverFi, and each day will have a different focus and different information for you to be able to have students participate in a virtual reality fair in a virtual setting. So again, it will be limited registration, but there is definitely going to be more information shared at the transition conference, including links for how to register and how to move forward with that. So they're really excited about that work that they did as well. So they created the template and the skeleton so that you could contact your local credit union and you could actually set this up in your district or at your intermediate unit. But then also are offering it as a statewide effort this year. And that was also some really great work. At the end of the sessions, what they'll actually have time to do is actually meet with a credit union representative and a financial advisor and talk about how the decisions that they made impacted what they ended up with or hurt them, or how they ended up with a great savings, or different ways that they could have made better decisions. So they'll be working through breakout room time as well. So it'll be a really great way for students to get that experience and not have to be face to face as well. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the other work that our TAC did.
Thanks, Hillary. I hope you're getting excited about this stuff because it's really fun. One of the things I noticed when you did the Wordle that Hillary put up there, I've been doing this for a long time, and the barriers that you put up that we felt during the pandemic are not much different than what we felt pre-pandemic, right? Access, resources, they were all things that we were experiencing just differently. So one of the things that we've also noticed along with our TAC is these great tools that Hillary's already talked about, ones I'm going to talk about, and then Caitlin will be finishing up for us. These are things that will continue to be able to be used as you move forward. I know you've all learned this about virtual learning, about virtual conferences and meeting with people, and that we have learned some things about it, and we'll continue to use those things as we move forward. So that's why we wanted to give you access to all of this in an easy way. So here, business partnerships were certainly impacted, right? Kids couldn't necessarily, we want to go back one, Hillary, there we go, couldn't necessarily access employment while we were home, especially in that first section where everybody was at home, sheltering in place. But as things started to open up a little bit, there were opportunities for students to be out and in the community. But we still had that problem, like they didn't want to come into our events, or they didn't want students having field trips coming through Target or wherever. So the TAC came up with this idea of virtual business experiences, and they created this this beautiful infographic that can be used by you, and that, again, this is available for you on the Padlet. COVID couldn't stop the work that they were doing. They still said, we want to move forward, we want to keep things happening. So they created this beautiful infographic available for you to take. You can put your school name on it, whatever you want to do. And then they also created some letters that would help you be able to communicate with employers. So there's one introducing a school or a student to the employer. There's one reaching out to employers to say, hey, we'd like to do these virtual experiences with our students. Are you interested? Can you help us out? And then there's a list of potential interview questions that students and employers can use if you wanted to set up any kind of a virtual interview for students. There's a video release form. And we want to encourage you, and I know Caitlin will be all over this too, that as you think about employment moving forward, everyone is looking for employees. So if there's a good time for us to be thinking about partnering with OVR and other partners to have more opportunities for our students to be entering the workforce, this is one of the best times in history that I can think of as long as I've been doing this, because there are job openings, and job openings that are well paying and have room for students to move forward and grow. So we really want you to be thinking about that as you're considering competitive integrated employment for the youth and young adults that are in your LEA. In the next slide. just one more virtual thing. We looked, again, our TAC helped us think through this using the tiny classroom again. This is a virtual educational resource or vendor fair. So every conference you go to has one of these, right? They've got a vendor fair. And we thought, could we do this? We had a virtual conference last year. Could we do a virtual vendor fair? And by gum, we did. And guess what? Other people are doing them now too. So if you look and see on this, you have not only this sample of the virtual vendor room that you can take, you can use this to create your own. TAC have been doing this for your local regions. So you may reach out to a TAC in your area if you want to just give access to families for this, even from your website, that all you're doing is clicking on a name tag and it takes you right to resources that have been provided by that particular vendor. And they were thrilled, vendors were thrilled to have access to folks in this way. Some have forms on there where people can contact them. There's contact information that they're sharing. Again, this sample and the project is on the Padlet, and you can take this, download it, and create a vendor fair that meets with your local needs. So I hope you're excited about that too. And now I'll hand things over to Caitlin, who's going to tell you about a really exciting venture that we've had as part of the work that we're doing hand in hand with OVR.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. So we actually have two new websites to share with you guys today that we're really excited about. One is the transitiondiscoveries.org website. This one is really geared to students and youth and services that are available to them, resources that are available. I don't know if are we actually planning on hopping on there? Sorry, Hillary. If we're going to hop on and just show you a little bit of the website. Again, this was developed by youth in collaboration with youth. It's continuing to be updated with resources that are available to them. And it actually walks through the transition discoveries.
And I'm going to hop in and help Caitlin out a little bit.
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, so transition discoveries, because it's my fault, not Caitlin's. Transition discoveries is one of the innovations that we are really most excited to share with you. Some of you may already be a part of this collaboration, and this is an effort between Patton and the TD team from George Washington University. In fact, the original research for transition discoveries was done here in Pennsylvania, so we're really excited to be a part of that too. If your district is participating in transition discoveries, either as recipient of one of the grants through Patton, or if you're participating as part of the TQEP project, I would ask you to put that in the chat, that your district and which project you're affiliated with. So this is the Transition Discoveries grants that were offered last year. So just to give you an idea, Transition Discoveries is a systems-wide look at secondary transition practices in an LEA. Groups of youth and young adults, families and caregivers, and transition stakeholders participate in research via a survey. And that survey helps determine what is really happening in terms of secondary transition services and outcomes at the local level. The George Washington team and the Patton team help LEAs to interpret the data that is gathered through that survey. And then someone called a transition champion supports a local change agent team, and they work together to consider the results that happen and then create action plans to better meet the needs of that, all to improve the outcomes of transition age youth. We also use a Schoology course to help support that continued learning for that team champion and the rest of the team. IU TAC and Patton consultants have been specially trained to support the local process for LEAs who are participating in transition discoveries. While Patton grants have been offered, George Washington University also, through the Developmental Disabilities Council, as I mentioned, they are implementing transition discoveries through a project called TQEP, or Transition Quality Empowerment Project, TQEP for short. These teams and the patent grant teams have come together and combined for one Transition Discoveries community of practice, and it's a really powerful group. We, Hillary and I, want to get your antenna up and say, be watching for additional grant opportunities coming soon. Now, what Hillary's been scrolling through here is our TD website, and sort of, sorry about that, Caitlin, sort of dropped that on you and it wasn't your responsibility. This Transition Discoveries website is really for youth and young adults and their families. Transition stakeholders have been a part of working through this, but the main focus here is for youth and young adults across the Commonwealth, and really across the country for that matter. They have people from all across the country who are accessing Transition Discoveries. Youth and families will find that this is uniquely created content, and it's just what they say, for youth and young adults. There are resources for educators on there as well, so we really say, hey, get your hands in there, check this out, share it with your staff. It really is a rich resource. All right, now I'm going to pass it to Caitlin for the next section.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks for recognizing the panic in my voice. Coming to my rescue. So now another new website that we want to share with you today. We are really excited for the launch of our new PA Secondary Transition website. You may be familiar with the old secondarytransition.org website. This is now pasecondarytransition.com. I think it literally just went live like a week or two ago. So we invite you to, we put the link in the chat, so we invite you to hop on and check it out, give us some feedback. This website was jointly funded by both the Bureau of Special Education and the Pennsylvania Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. So we are continuing to collaborate and work on this. The website is really intended to be a one-stop shop for general information about transition, practices, and resources. And it's closely aligned with that Transition Discoveries website that we were just looking at that's more geared towards youth. On the website, we have an interagency shared events calendar. We have a place where we can share current announcements and information, any shared, I'm losing all my words today, I apologize. Any shared webinars or conferences that are coming up, we will put on this calendar so we can check it out and keep everybody up to date. You can also check out the search feature on the resource page where you can search curriculum, assessments, and other transition resources. Thanks, Hillary. You are on the ball with the scrolling. So while that Transition Discoveries website is geared a little bit more towards student, youth, and families, the PA Secondary Transition website is really the counterpart for professionals and stakeholders. So again, we are going to be continually updating the website with the latest transition events and resources to assist in facilitating a student's progress towards post-secondary goals related to education, employment, and community living. So awesome. You already did switch to the next slide. Thanks, Hillary. So on the website, actually, if you scroll down to the policy section, you will find information on the Memorandum of Understanding between OVR and BSC. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 both require OVR and BSC to collaborate to arrange and provide pre-employment transition services to students with disability. And our intent with the Memorandum of Understanding is to provide students with disabilities seamless access to services and supports to achieve their transition goals. The MOU really emphasizes collaboration between OVR and BSC by outlining key roles and the responsibilities of each agency, while also recognizing that a partnership with youth and families is beneficial for students with disabilities. We are continuing to work on resources and an MOU toolkit that can be found on the website, along with recordings from the webinar series that recently took place. Those are also, that's just the screenshot of those recordings. So if you hop on the website, you can review the webinars. There was 3 of them about the MOU, and it kind of dived in a little bit more into the different pieces within that memorandum, and resources that were delivered with each webinar are also included on there. So lots of information, even more to come. So check that part out as well. All right, so on the next slide, we actually, with feedback from the MOU work group, including our youth and family stakeholders, OVR recently updated their pre-ETS continuum, our pre-ETS continuum. I am an OVR employee. The continuum, if you're not familiar with it yet, is divided into 3 categories based on where a student is at in their career planning process. So those categories are career exploration and preparation, career engagement, and career experience and planning. And then under each of those 3 categories, you'll see that services are further broken down into the 5 areas of pre-employment transition services, which is self-advocacy instruction, job exploration, workplace readiness training, work-based learning experiences, and then counseling on post-secondary options. So the student and their team can use this continuum to determine where that student is at and what services they have maybe already received, and then determine what may be the next appropriate service for them. Oh, awesome, the document's on Padlet too. And it is one of the resources that was handed out as well as part of the MOU. So you can see it there as well, or you can ask your local OVR counselor or early reach coordinator and they will have it as well. On that continuum as well, on the second page, we just have further defined pre-employment transition services and how those services fit into the broader continuum of vocational rehabilitation. And so it has a little bit more broken down on that second page as well. We chose to break out the continuum into these categories instead of maybe by grade level, because we're really just trying to determine where the student is at in this career discovery and planning process. And as we all know, students come in with different experiences and different levels of having received services. So it's hard to do by grade level. So that's why we stuck with just those 3 broad categories. So sorry then, thanks. And then just a little bit more about some specific OVR services. In an effort to increase services to students this summer and then throughout the next school year, we introduced several new provider agreements in April this year. As we all know, access and getting into the community was a little tough during the pandemic. Students really did not get to get out. They didn't get to do paid work experiences. They didn't get to go out and do any job shadows, really. And our providers that do a lot of these services for us also took a hit as far as just not being able to go out and take students out and having to maybe lay off employees. So we introduced these new provider agreements as a way to increase services to our students and to have more opportunities for our providers in different types of ways to get students out and get services back up, get staff back up, and get things rolling again. So I did just want to quickly touch on each of these provider agreements to explain a little bit more about them. The first one is the summer post-secondary experiences, which is really about giving students instruction in the areas of independent living, goal setting, and self-advocacy skills needed for success during post-secondary education while immersed in a college, university, or a community college setting. So this program is going to take place on a post-secondary campus. And in that type of setting. Students receive at least 30 hours of post-secondary experiences on site at a college, again, university or community college or any type of post-secondary training environment. And while in-person experiences are preferred, as we're kind of stepping that back up again, virtual services are definitely still considered at this time. Our Professional Connections experience is a program that includes 1 week of group presentations on workplace readiness and job exploration, and then another week of exploration of the world of work through job shadows, informational and mock interviews, or in-person workplace tours. Again, trying to emphasize those in-person experiences, but realizing that it's not always safe or possible, so virtual services can still be utilized for this program. And this program is about 60 hours, so it's 30 hours each week. We try to keep it within that 2-week period, but in some cases, it definitely goes longer depending on what works best for the student and the provider. And then we have the My Work initiative. This program actually began in Pittsburgh in 2016. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area, you might be familiar with it. And it's focused on providing students with disabilities work experience within their local communities. Students have the opportunity to participate in community jobs where they gain valuable work experience and practice soft skills while receiving training and earning a stipend. So it is a type of paid work experience. And we are now trying to replicate this throughout the state. And lastly, and probably the most exciting one, is a transportation provider agreement, which is so very new that it actually is not coming out yet. It's just going through one final review with our legal before it'll be released. So just know that this one is coming very soon, and it's focused on just transportation services. We know that's one of our biggest barriers with students, always has been, most likely always will. So we're trying to work on that. We are looking to collaborate with existing transportation providers to develop services based on our local office's needs. So transportation providers will agree to transport our customers and our students and assist staff in connecting customers to transportation services. So again, just trying to work with what is out there, what's in each of our different communities and our local district offices, and trying to ramp up those services, especially for our students and customers. So it could be public transportation or it could be private, and partnering with some of those private options as well. So hopefully more to come on that one very soon. And I think that's everything. Like Jackie said, just reiterating, I know that it's still touch and go, trying to get our students back out into the community and keeping everybody safe. But we are desperately trying to ramp those services back up, knowing that students kind of missed out on a year of those paid work experiences, and knowing how crucial that is in success after high school. So keep us in mind.
Thanks, Caitlin. I think I'm most excited about the transportation initiative and the provider agreements for transportation, because we single-handedly hear that as one of the biggest barriers, particularly in our more rural areas or areas that don't have access to public transportation for students, that transportation is a barrier to employment. And you guys have partnered with us and heard us saying those things, and so it's really nice to see that effort being put forward to help get more students access to be able to go into employment. So thank you for sharing all of that great information. Okay, so we just also wanted to share, Caitlin, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the updated case management system and how information will be collected for OVR purposes too.
Sure, yes. So it's actually going live this Friday, and we are equal parts excited and terrified of how it's gonna go, as with any change to our case management system. If you are familiar with CWDS, which is the case management system that OVR uses, you fix one thing and you break 5 others. So fingers crossed that all goes well. It's going to be updated screens for our staff and for our providers that are accessing the CWDS through the career link side. And it's really trying to just get all of our pre-employment transition services into one set of screens, and streamline those services, streamline how we're collecting reports from providers and billing and invoicing. So if you are a school that is also a provider with OVR, we do have some upcoming webinars. So if you haven't received information on the one that's Thursday afternoon, please email me and I will forward you that invite, because we are hopeful that this is going to make things a lot easier, make billing and providing all those reports a lot easier, and even just getting students into the system easier. So
Thanks.
let me know. Yeah.
Thanks, Caitlin. So some of the things that we're excited about within the transition initiative in Pennsylvania from an educational lens is we are working with our paraeducator initiative to develop a training series for paraeducators on how to serve more in the role of a job coach when they're supporting students out in the workplace and in the community, and really looking to help them hone skills to be able to support students in employment and to really give them the competencies and the skills to be a support and a resource and to not be the person helping or doing the job for the students. So we're really excited about this, and we will see that come out in the winter spring for paraeducators, and it'll be part of the series and accessible for paraeducators for their 20 hours. So we're really excited about that. Jackie had mentioned be on the lookout for transition discoveries grants. So if you actually go on the patent website currently, there is information currently there about transition discoveries. You're kind of getting it on the down low. But if you access the training calendar, we will be sharing information about transition discoveries. If you go to October, my mouse is extremely sensitive today. If you go to October, we will be doing an overview webinar for any LEA that is interested in implementing transition discoveries on October 7th. The registration is live. So you're kind of getting this information. It went live on Friday. You're getting it firsthand. We encourage you to first register for the webinar so that you can get a sense in a little more detail about what that entails and how to apply for it. But second to that, what we really encourage you to do is spend some time exploring the resources on the Transition Discoveries website, but also on the patent website, because under the secondary transitions part of our website, if you go under effective practices for transition discoveries is our first bullet, and you can watch some of the information that was shared with LEAs, some short information about it, who the grantees were this year. So if there's one in your area and you wanted to talk with them about what they did over the first year with the grant, you can reach out to their schools and talk with them about the work that they did with TD. We actually are offering for those same LEAs that participated this year, their year 2 funding, as well as up to, I believe it's 20 LEAs potentially this year, new LEAs to start the process. So we're really excited to get transition discoveries and continue to grow it. So again, feel free to register for the webinar, spend some time on the TD website and on the patent website, getting familiar with what TD is and what information and how can it improve your transition programming. And that's what's really exciting about TD for Jackie and I, is that we've traditionally really spent a lot of time on compliance and performance indicators, but we haven't spent some time over the last few years in really getting at good transition programming and using stakeholder data to inform the programming that we offer and the supports that we offer to students. So this is really more of a systemic approach to improving our transition continuum for students. So that's the transition discoveries grants. The other grants that we have coming up, and actually there is a webinar coming up for this, is the competitive integrated employment grants. And I want to jump back to the patent website because there's information already on the website about the competitive employment grants. So if you go under what is secondary transition and click on competitive integrated employment, you will see information about the flyer for a webinar introducing the grants for this year, the request for application, so information about what we're looking for sites to apply, a link to the actual application to apply, and then some frequently asked questions about the competitive integrated employment grants. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to about the grants is that there is actually a link for this past year, and you can access the presentations from 1920, for the grantee sites. And again, there's a listing of the LEAs who actually received the grant this year. So if you were interested in hearing more about what they did with their grant money, you could reach out directly to them. They just finished their presentations over the last 2 weeks. And so there will be a link coming to this section of the website as well, where you'll be able to hear from the grantees that were awarded the competitive integrated employment grants this year, and hear about what they did with the funding. 2 things: sites who received the funding this year and it was their first year can actually apply for an extension grant this year. And then new sites can apply, and the new sites can apply for up to $35,000. So it really is something to put some effort and thought into about how could you use such a great windfall of money to help really improve experiences for students in your LEA to access competitive and integrated employment. So I encourage you to take some time to hear over the past 2 years what the sites have used the funding for. Explore the application and the RFA and really consider applying. These are really competitive. I think we had over 70 applications last year and we were able to select 17. So please take some time to consider how could you create and do something new and innovative to provide competitive integrated employment services and supports to students in your LEA. So those are 2. We're really fortunate that funding comes to us from the Bureau. They are really committed to secondary transition and to preparing students for competitive integrated employment. So we have been very generously given a large bucket of money to provide grants to LEAs to help improve their transition programming. 2 other things to be on to know about is one that we really did an overhaul over the pandemic to our Indicator 13 transition compliance for the cyclical monitoring professional development. We've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years with our intermediate unit TAC working on becoming more of an instructional coach as they support you through working with your teachers, working with your teams to improve compliance as it relates to preparing the transition specific items for your cyclical monitoring. So they are kind of changed focus a little bit into more of the role of a coach. And then we standardized the training that is provided to LEAs across the state into a Schoology course, large in part because there were definitely some issues with time and subs and getting time in professional development to be able to provide the training. So this will give some flexibility to LEAs in terms of when their teachers will have access to and need to complete the course by. And then the work with the TAC will be largely focused on coaching. And then we also have convened a work group to look at our current Indicator 14 or PA pause process. And are in some considerations and conversations very preliminarily about some potential ways that we would like to see that process improve to better collect information for the outcomes that our students are engaging in, but then also how can we give that data to you to be able to make decisions and to change programming and to support students and make use that data meaningfully to be able to really do effective programming for students. So those are some things that we're really excited about. There's been lots of changes. The very nature of the word transition means change, and this initiative and this work changes on a daily basis. But we are so thrilled with the renewed partnership with OBR, with the work. Caitlin alluded to more resources coming out of the toolkit and lots of new training and lots of different resources that'll be available to you. There is going to be a ton of transition focus over the next year, and we really hope that you're excited to come and walk along that journey with us. We embedded footsteps and footprints into this because we really are continuing to step forward in the work that we do to support students with disabilities and to really think about competitive integrated employment as the primary and first consideration for all students, and then to fold in services and supports as we go along and to ensure that that process is seamless and that our students are not just graduating, but that they're graduating to meaningful lives So here is our contact information. And I wanted to take a moment to see if there were any questions in the chat. Jackie, I don't know, or Kim, if there are questions that need answered.
I'm not seeing anything that wasn't answered, but we've been talking, so let's see, give people a chance if they want to enter something in, questions or comments that you have around secondary transition. We're happy to do the best we can to answer them. Is there a parent handout for OVR BSE MOU? Yes, there is. It's both on our patent website and on the Transition Discoveries website. So, oops, looks like Hillary's trying to take you to the new. Yeah, we were fortunate with this, working with the MOU. We had folks from HUNE, folks from Peel, the Pennsylvania Youth Leadership Network, folks from OVR, and our education folks as well. Both directors from OVR and the Bureau of Special Education worked very closely with our team, and we were supported by trainers from NTAC, the national arm of training around secondary transition as well.
So I just pulled, yep, go ahead, Jackie, sorry.
Go ahead with this one.
I was going to say, I just pulled up a resource that I think hits the needs of what you're talking about, Tara, which is the Memorandum of Understanding, and it is youth and family friendly. So this document was actually created by members from PYLN, HUNE, and the Peel Center to help youth and families better understand what the Memorandum of Understanding is and what are the different components. And specifically, I think the most important part is that last box. What parts of the MOU are important for youth and families, and what do they really need to take from that? So that was a great question.
Yeah, and there are other resources there. This is one that's specifically written, but as we wrote what we were thinking through with our definitions and things like that, our consultants who were a part of the process, who were family members and youth and young adults, were a great filter, because they made us stay true to our word that this doesn't really matter if the folks who are using the services can't understand the resources we're putting out. So there's a question too about the Indicator 13 Schoology course. That really is, at this point, we piloted it this year, as Hillary said. We'll be moving into actually using it for those LEAs who are in the Indicator 13 cohort this year. And it is not something that's just open for anybody to enter into it, because what we really want to be able to see is what's our data. So if we want to see, we'll do a pre-assessment, and then we'll run the Indicator 13 course with those LEAs, and then we'll do a post-assessment. And we really have been looking for feedback from those folks as well. So we're not yet ready to make that Schoology course something that's available to everybody, but our patent website does have resources that would support work around Indicator 13 training that have been on there. And then you always can contact your local IU and then patent as well for support around any thing that you might need help with. Hillary's showing our modules that are available for secondary transition practices. See, Caitlin, it says Caitlin mentioned something about a webinar on Thursday. What was the topic?
I just put it in the chat too, but just so the webinar Thursday afternoon is for any pre-ETS provider of OVRs who uses CareerLink right now to invoice and pay for services or to bill for services. It's a walkthrough of the new case management system. So if you need that, just let me know.
That really is just for those providers. Then.
Yes, yeah.
Other questions? We have another minute, Kim, I think. Well, we certainly do appreciate you joining us this afternoon. We've, as you can tell, we're really excited about the work that's happening, and we continue to be that way. So if at any time you've got our information, please feel free to reach out. if you've got further questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. We always do appreciate this opportunity to speak with special education leaders.
Great. Thank you, Hillary, Jackie, and Caitlin. Tons of information. I think the administrators could use a half a day just to go through and just get to the surface level of everything that was completed, and just wonderful information. So I do hope that people do take advantage of what was provided for them. Comments, thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent, very helpful, great resources are all coming in through the chat, so that's wonderful. So again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. For folks, just some last minute housekeeping. Act 48 credit, again, is being awarded for participants who attend the full afternoon today, full morning Tuesday, and or full afternoon on Tuesday. So you have to attend all of this afternoon and or all of the morning of tomorrow and or all of the afternoon tomorrow afternoon. That was pretty redundant, huh? So we only want you to complete one survey. So I'm going to put the survey link in the chat. If you're finished after today, you'll complete the survey. If you're not going to, if you're going to continue on through this conference tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, you will wait until the afternoon to complete the survey for your Act 48. The session code, and I will also put that in, is CGST2. So that's a nice complicated one. So let me put that in as well. And I'm also just going to put a little plug in for our 2021 PA Community of Practice Transition Conference, Navigating the Future. It is August 11th and 12th. Great sessions lined up. I think it's going to be very helpful, very informational, a lot of resource sharing, and you'll be able to see the final expo vendor. So that make sure you sign up. The link is also in the chat. So if that's it, anybody has any questions, I will remain here. Our next session starts at 3 o'clock, so take a break, stretch your legs, and we'll see you back for your next session. Thank you. Have a great one.